The expectation and the norm is to win, and that is what we will be able to do here. I believe in the power of UCLA.
It's a new day for UCLA football with new head coach Bob Chesney taking charge, and we need you to be a part of it. The right man is at the helm in Westwood, and the time is now for you to put your support behind the Bruins. UCLA football is ready to win, and we can't wait to see you this fall. Visit UCLABruins.com/tickets for more info on how to secure your seats for the 2026 season. Go Bruins!
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We are doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons right after Guy Benson Show and just before the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang. And stay tuned at 6 o'clock this evening for the Way Home radio show and podcast presented by the Union Rescue Mission. I'll be back on the air at 6 o'clock this evening. In fact, every Thursday evening here on 790 KABC with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission, focusing on the homeless in Los Angeles and solutions. We have a special guest this evening on that program, by the way, the new chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department. Mixed finish today for the stock market as the tech names took a hit. Disappointing earnings from Microsoft leading the way for a tech sell-off, pushing the NASDAQ down today by nearly 200 points, back to 23,685. The Dow managed a closing gain of 56 points at 49,072, and the S&P 500 slipped 9 at 6,969. That index near the record high it hit earlier in the week. Investors taking a hit on the tech scene after Microsoft reported higher than expected spending on AI infrastructure and slower cloud growth. Microsoft down about 10% on the day. Gold and silver prices swinging sharply today after nearing 5,600 an ounce for the first time. Gold did hit a new record high, right now hovering at around 5,458 and change. It got above 5,500. Silver also moved higher today. We'll be taking a closer look at precious metals prices here. In fact, right now we see silver up more than $2 at $116.90. It was even higher than that in the last 24 hours. Copper rallied too and is at or near all-time highs. The price of oil also spiking today on reports that President Trump is weighing new strikes on Iran. Brent crude futures in London topping $70 a barrel. We'll get an update on gas and oil prices ahead of what's expected to be U.S. military action against Iran any minute now. John Kilduff, prominent oil analyst, CNBC contributor, and longtime contributor to this program, will be joining us live later this hour. Taking a look at what's happening locally, we have what's happening with Elon Musk companies. As you heard, some changes coming to the Tesla plant here in Northern California. Meanwhile, SpaceX, XAI, and Tesla are in play for a potential merger. While the talks appear to be in the early stage, according to reports from Reuters, it could eventually lead to at least one company folding into, want to take a guess, SpaceX. Two scenarios being discussed reportedly. In one, SpaceX and Tesla would merge, according to a Bloomberg report citing unnamed sources. Another scenario includes SpaceX and AXI, which already owns Elon Musk's social media platform X, would combine. Tesla's CEO Elon Musk says that the company would begin phasing out its Model S and Model X electric vehicles this year and retool the California factory in Fremont to produce humanoid robots instead. A lot of news came out of that conference call yesterday after Tesla earnings. Tesla stock today pulling back nearly $15 at $416 and change. A year after the devastating fires were finally put out in the Los Angeles area after burning for nearly the full month of January last year, President Trump blasting the painfully slow pace of the firestorm rebuilding efforts in Malibu, the Palisades, and Altadena. A year after the firestorms roared through the area, he does not want to see low-income housing, by the way, in the Palisades. President Trump issued an executive order this week to preempt the building permit process and empower the federal government to maneuver around local regulations. We'll get the latest on what's happening with prominent, globally recognized L.A. area economist Kevin Klowden, fellow at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica, who will be joining us live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy. Joining us now for our occasional Frank and Stein conversation, which we do here as needed. Joining us now, the one and only Ben Stein, financial and political commentator, economist, attorney, author of numerous books. I'm not done yet. Game show host of Win Ben Stein's Money. Actor, too, playing the economist professor in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he gave the lecture on 1930s U.S. trade policy in one of the most famous scenes and most loved scenes in American cinema. Ben Stein, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you, my friend.
A lot going on. What's on your mind? What's on your top of mind here, Ben Stein? Iran, for example, what do you think is going to happen here?
I am terrified about Iran. It's a big country. People don't seem to realize this is not like Monaco or Monte Carlo, as sometimes called. This is a big country. Getting into a war against the Muslim fanatics there would be a gigantic operation. They would fight back, and they're extremely well motivated and well armed. I don't want to get into a war with them unless it's something we can be absolutely sure we can win. And I don't think there is such a thing as a war we can absolutely be sure we can win. Those days are gone. We are dealing with a different kind of warfare these days. And gosh, I don't want to see any friends of mine or their children or their grandchildren, I guess would be in my case, going off to fight against the mullahs and their fanatical followers. We can, I imagine, do something. We've been disgraceful in our lack of follow through on promise to help the demonstrators against the mullahs. But what can we do? We're in a very, very bad situation, and I hope it does not get worse. I'm scared about it. I will tell you, I'm scared about it.
On there live with Ben Stein. Did you ever meet the Shah of Iran? In addition to your illustrious credits, I should have mentioned you were also at the White House, too, back in the 1970s, and maybe you can tell the audience some more about that. Did you ever interact with the Shah of Iran? And if the current government in Iran is overthrown, will the Shah's son ultimately take over? Who might replace the current regime if this all plays out?
I don't know, but I will tell you, I did meet the Shah, and I had the great pleasure of meeting him in the White House, not during the days when I was a speechwriter for Mr. Nixon, but I cannot remember who was the boss then, but I do remember somebody saying to the president, the president at that time, I'm not sure who it was, saying, we really have got to do something about these Muslim fanatics. God bless them, by the way, and Mohammedanism was a perfectly good religion, but what the heck would we do about it now? So, a lot of times past, the people who follow the Shah are dispersed. There are plenty of them, by the way, in West LA. But how would we beat a really well-armed, fanatical opponent in Iran? I'm not quite sure how that would work out, and I don't have any confidence that it will easily work out. But we and our friends, the Israelis, are still fighting the Hamas in Gaza, and it's a long, long fight. Doesn't look anywhere near finished. But these guys are very, very hard to beat.
In all this, another big story, precious metals suddenly outshining crypto and other investments nowadays. Hope you got your gold handy there, because gold is at an all-time high, got close to 5,600, I believe, in the last 24 hours. And silver also along for the ride, platinum, palladium, all at or near record highs. What's going on here with the precious metals having this astronomical gain?
I do not know. I don't know. I don't understand crypto. I don't understand what has made the precious metals explode. There's a lot I don't understand. I follow the simple rules of life and investment laid out by my longtime pal and inspiration, Mr. Buffett, who said if an investment entity is not yielding any income, has no dividends, has no prospect of any dividends, what on earth do we value? How do we value it? How do we evaluate cryptos? I have no idea. And if Mr. Buffett, who is very, very much smarter than I am, has no idea of how to evaluate or value cryptos, I don't have any idea. I drive by the crypto stadium on my way down to our house in the desert quite often, and there's a big stadium there. It's being paid for in some way by cryptos or investors in cryptos. I don't understand how any of that works. I like the idea of owning a stock in a company that makes something, has profits, and is a real thing. It's not just a fantasy. I consider the cryptos just a fantasy. Obviously, it's a fantasy that's done very, very well for some people, and God bless them, but I don't get it. I really don't. Investment that's great, house in Beverly Hills. That's what's investment. That's an investment that's done really well for my wife and me. That I can understand. An investment in a phantom like the cryptos, I don't get it. I do not understand it, Frank. I wish everybody well who has them. I don't get it.
All right. What about good old-fashioned gold? Precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium. You probably loaded up on those over the years. What about
I
gold here
haven't
at around
loaded up on.
5,600 an ounce?
I haven't loaded up on it. I have a little tiny bit of it, but Frank, I will tell you again, as I just told you a moment ago. My wifey and I, the saint of saints, my wifey, have a number of what I believe to be pretty nice houses in Southern California, and I understand them. They produce a huge value, namely the pleasure of living in them, the pleasure of looking out the window and seeing the Pacific Ocean, the pleasure of looking out the window in the right time of year and seeing the Grunion boats lighting up the sky in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Malibu. I understand that. What the value of the cryptos is, I don't get it. I know there's some. I know there are a lot of people who think that I'm an idiot for not understanding it. But what I'll tell you is Mr. Buffett has told me a number of times he doesn't understand it. If he doesn't understand it, I don't understand it. It's real simple.
All right, turning now to the Federal Reserve. We got the decision holding the line on interest rates just yesterday, and the current Fed chair, Jerome Powell, is on the way out. Looks like the latest news is President Trump says he'll announce the Fed chair pick next week. Any thoughts about that and what the Fed should or shouldn't do at this point?
I had a conversation with a man who is the owner or close to being the majority owner of a very small bank where my wife and I have some accounts. And he asked me what I thought the Federal Reserve should do now. And the answer is I like the idea that they'll hold the line and not let prices explode. Inflation is a terrifying beast. Mr. Powell has withstood every kind of criticism and mockery and belittlement for keeping the lid screwed on in terms of prices. I admire him very much for it. Yes, I would like to see lower interest rates because the main asset that my wife and I have is real estate. Generally speaking, if real estate rates if interest rates go down, real estate prices go up. And I like that a lot. But I also don't like the idea that my neighbors and friends are going to be suffering because of the lid being put on real estate. Here in Southern California, where we all live and where we love it so very, very much, real estate is our number one concern. I want to see it do well. I don't want to see it hit too hard or hard at all by the Federal Reserve or by any other part of the government or of the world generally. I like having real estate going well. I don't want to have it exploding upwards. I want to see things go on in a calm, orderly way. Your humble servant, and you have run into each other many times at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and you've noticed that I am wearing a little button on my lapel that says, I like Ike. Yep. It was a gift from a friend who follows the career of General Eisenhower, and what it mainly says, obviously, is not that General Eisenhower is going to be running for president again, but that we want those calm, orderly days in terms of prices, in terms of wages, in terms of productivity. We want peace and quiet. We don't want to have a scary world. We've had it. We've had enough fear. Frank, you are quite a bit younger than I am, I think, but you may or may not recall days when we really thought we were going to have nuclear war. And the Bushes would say nuclear war. I don't want us to be anywhere near those days. I want us to be in days of peace and quiet. I liked Ike because he kept things nice and quiet, and I'd like to see that go on. I'd like to see it go on a long, long time.
And of course, you're speaking of General Dwight D. Eisenhower, became president after leading Allied forces on D-Day and led victory in Europe for the United States and the Allies, who later became president and served admirably in the 1950s. And certainly we honor his memory here as well. Ben Stein, let me ask you this now. We see that President Trump is talking about the firestorm recovery. Your real estate holdings, I'm sure long-term listeners will remember that you mentioned Malibu. I believe you have a place there, too. President Trump on the air this week blasting the slow pace of the firestorm recovery efforts in Malibu, the Palisades, and Altadena. A year after the firestorms, he issued an executive order to preempt the building the building permit process of Los Angeles and this area and empower the federal government to maneuver around local regulations. What's your reaction to that big news this week?
My reaction is that President Trump is doing the exactly right thing. The powers that be in Malibu, who want to have a very large number of low-income houses in areas where there should be high-income houses, who will be able to pay taxes and support the schools and the fire department and the police department. I think President Trump is exactly right. What on earth did the powers that be in Malibu have in mind, or in the Palisades, or in Pasadena, have in mind building lots of low-income housing in places where high-income housing is needed to support very expensive operations of government? What are they thinking of? What craziness are they thinking of to want to build low-income Section 8 housing in places where there will yield no tax revenue, no possible way to support the schools and fire departments and so forth? Let's have some good sense here. Let's not have pie in the sky coming from our icky Governor Newsom and our icky and not very smart local authorities.
On there live with the one and only Ben Stein. Another breaking story here from Washington. We're hearing Senate Democrats reached a deal with the White House today to prevent a partial government shutdown by moving to temporarily fund the Department of Homeland Security for a couple of weeks. This drama playing out again, also with the Department of Homeland Security in focus and what's going on there. Give us your reaction to that breaking news here.
Very interesting. Glad you asked that question. Sir, you're much younger than I am, but I can tell you that I don't remember ever anyone considering the idea of a government shutdown in order to play politics. The government is too important to be shut down as a tool to have Democrats versus Republicans or Republicans versus Democrats. Same thing, basically. But, sir, we don't want these games to go on. Let's have slow and steady wins in the race, and that we have to have a steady government. We have to have a steady government so that poor people can start to become middle-class people, and middle-class people can start to become upper-class people. I'd like to see a government that doesn't work in order to sabotage the other party, but works for all the people. And by the way, very closely related to that, our police in LA and in general areas of Southern California work so hard in such difficult circumstances. It breaks my heart that they are cursed at, spit on, have bottles thrown at them. We treat our police, who risk their lives every day for us, we treat them like dirt. It's a shame. It humiliates me as a Southern Californian that we have so little regard for the people who keep us safe at night.
On there live with the one and only Ben Stein for our Frank and Stein conversation. Are you going to be in any movies, Ben? Have you seen any good movies lately?
I see. I have no plans to be in any movies. I would cheerfully be in any movie anyone wanted me to be in, unless it's pornographic. But nobody's asking me to do it. I think I'm too old to play any sex scenes. And but I do see one great movie over and over again, Blade Runner. That is, I think, the best movie I've ever seen. And I just love and worship it. I hope you do too, Frank. I think it's a work of genius from the first frame to the last. And God bless the people who made it. And let's thank God that we still have such capable people, such artistically brilliant people as the ones who made Blade Runner. That movie is a movie for the ages.
And let's not forget to thank and honor those who made Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And, of course, every time you're on, we get requests for the roll call, Ben Stein. So if you don't mind taking the roll now, that would be great.
Adams, Adamley, Adamowski, Brown, Bueller. You bet, Frank. Always on the job for you, my friends.
Thank you. I would add Frank.
That's Frankenstein.
There it is.
Frank, there you are. God bless you,
Stein.
sir.
Thank you very much. The one and only Ben Stein joining us live here on Motec on Money, 790 KABC. Bless you, sir. Thank you.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
My name is David Goss, and I'm joined by my co-host Megan Klinenberg.
Everything up until this point has been an outside look at the World Cup, and now we're giving people an inside look. It is just total pressure cooker.
Watching flags come out of little plastic balls is like the epitome of everything that I love, and the World Cup is everything. It's why I became a soccer fan.
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The expectation and the norm is to win, and that is what we will be able to do here. I believe in the power of UCLA.
It's a new day for UCLA football with new head coach Bob Chesney taking charge, and we need you to be a part of it. The right man is at the helm in Westwood, and the time is now for you to put your support behind the Bruins. UCLA football is ready to win, and we can't wait to see you this fall. Visit UCLABruins.com/tickets for more info on how to secure your seats for the 2026 season. Go Bruins!
Mo Tackle Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Mixed finish for stocks today with tech names leading the way lower for the NASDAQ, including Microsoft taking a big hit today. Tesla also lower, down nearly $15 at 416 and change. The NASDAQ was down 172 points at 23,685. The S&P 500 slipping some more from the recent record high after kissing 7,000. The S&P 500 down 9 points today at 6,969, and the Dow gained 56 points at 49,072. Price of gold and silver back in focus. Volatile day for the precious metals, with gold up around 5,600, right now at around 5,458 and change. We see silver up about $2 now at 116 and change. Platinum up about 22 at 2,640, and palladium up about $23 at 2,042. Checking the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin up about 500 at 84,592, and another mostly down day for the cryptos. Ethereum at 2,820, and Doge at the moment at 11 cents. Mo Tackle Money continues here in 790 KABC. Looking back at what happened a year ago, it was just about a year ago at this time when the last flames of the devastating firestorms, which started January 7, 2025, were finally extinguished. A year after that devastating firestorm finally put out in the Los Angeles area after burning for nearly the full month of January last year, President Trump this week blasting the painfully slow pace of the firestorm rebuilding efforts in the Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. A year after the firestorms roared through the area, President Trump issuing an executive order this week to preempt the building permit process locally and empower the federal government to maneuver around local regulations. The White House announcing the president signed an executive order with an aim to cut through bureaucratic red tape and speed up reconstruction of the Palisades and Eaton Canyon areas 1 year after the devastating fires. The presidential action is titled Addressing State and Local Failures to Rebuild Los Angeles After Wildfire Disasters. Joining us live now, prominent economist Kevin Klowden, fellow at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica, who's been following this story very closely, of course. Kevin Klowden, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank, and great to talk to you again.
Wonderful to have you with us here, and you've been following this right from the beginning and the recovery efforts and the economic impact of all this. Give us your reaction to the big news this week on the presidential executive order.
Well, I think you've got a fact that the president is aware and honestly knows a number of people in his circle who have homes in LA or are certainly familiar with it. And looking at the pace of rebuilding is excruciatingly slow. And even in the areas where things have moved fairly quickly, just the sheer number of different issues that have come up, and some of which are very much local, some of which are state, some of which are county, and some of which are even federal. So making an effort and trying to push for expediting rebuilding is clearly something that not only the president, but most people in Palisades and Altadena and otherwise would also like to see. Just it's a question of, can it get executed?
On there live with the economist Kevin Klowden, and certainly the insurance issue is a big one. What about that and the disappointment that people have sustained in not getting made whole in this terrible disaster?
Well, there are fundamental flaws that have been existing in the insurance market for housing especially, but also for businesses in California for some time. And unfortunately, it's not even unique to California, but it's manifesting itself particularly strongly around the fires. And that is that the insurance companies themselves have been looking at the increased fire risk in the state, going back to the Paradise Fire, going back to a number of other significant ones that have happened in different parts of the state, and have been trying to hedge and protect themselves against the level of repayment. And a number of people who lost their homes had seen their premiums massively increase or their coverage decrease, or their insurance companies withdraw entirely even before the fire. And when you combine that and combine with the way that the insurance companies are trying to limit their rate of payouts because of the just incredible amount of money they're exposed to, it can be absolutely brutal for families on the ground who, as you said, are trying to be made whole.
Looks like the president has Lee Zeldin coming here, the EPA administrator, to try to turn things around quickly after the EPA's cleanup effort, I understand, was faster than most people expected. What about his involvement in this at this point?
Well, if he can actually step in and can coordinate getting enough people on the ground for not only for the EPA in terms of the cleanup, but also potentially there have been issues in terms of Army Corps of Engineers and cleanouts, if there are various other assessments, if he can do it in a way that allows people to rebuild and go back in more quickly, that would be amazing, especially if there have been holdups in some of the cleanups and various issues. The concern is that a number of homeowners and others have is if you skip steps, not expedite them, but if you skip steps, then you wind up with a toxic liability in rebuilding that could wind up showing when you try to sell your house a few years down the road.
And as far as the SBA is concerned, after the presidential executive order, we see the SBA administrator also trying to get more help for small businesses that were wiped out in all of this. So I know you're close with a lot of the business groups here. And what about that component, trying to restart businesses that were also wiped out in the firestorm?
It's incredibly important. And one of the things that actually is essential to any kind of rebuilding of a community, not only in the Palisades but Altadena, but even if you look at some of the impacts of places that were where businesses were devastated, even if the fire didn't directly touch them, it's had a very large impact, and we've seen this trickle into the surrounding communities. The SBA, when it acts, has been one of the most effective agents for rebuilding. In fact, if you go back to 20 years ago, if you go back to the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, the SBA actually was a lead in helping to rebuild local businesses in New Orleans. We've also seen this happen in a number of other parts of California and the U.S. after storms and fires. So if the SBA is putting additional efforts on the ground, if they're able to expedite additional loans and financial assistance, it really could make a significant difference, and we're definitely glad to see that.
All right, so much to talk about with the firestorm recovery, but also some other big issues. We did get the Federal Reserve meeting yesterday, and the Fed holding the line on short-term interest rates at one of Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's last news conferences. He's on the way out, and President Trump has indicated that the new Fed chair choice will be named next week. Give us your thoughts here on what the Fed had to say about the economy, the holding the line on interest rates, and what might be ahead.
Well, I mean, the upside, as far as looking at the Fed and what it was saying is that the Fed thinks the economy isn't falling down nearly as much as a number of other observers have been saying, that they think that the underlying numbers are actually pretty, relatively good in terms of growth, in terms of overall economic pressures. At the same time, you contrast the Fed move to keep things steady with the cuts at Amazon, cuts at UPS, various other announced layoffs, and it feels like a bit of a mixed message. So even if the Fed feels like the areas that it can impact are doing okay and it's not cutting rates, at the same time, when you see these various layoffs happening and you see consumer sentiment continuing to remain low, you can understand why there would be frustration, say, in the White House and elsewhere, as to the Fed saying, hey, things aren't nearly as bad. The real question is, not just in terms of the Fed, but in terms of overall, is cutting interest rates actually the key to improved economic activity, given the fact that lots of different businesses, lots of different consumers and so on aren't necessarily getting helped by better access to capital that would go with to go along with that cut in interest rates.
All right, and last but not least, while we have a chance here for just another minute or so, what do you make of this astronomical run-up in the price of gold and silver, as well as the other precious metals, as the dollar has slipped recently?
I think that it is a big alarm bell. Honestly, it's not that it means everything is utterly imminent, but if you look at it, it means that where people would be hedging in terms of reducing their exposure to the dollar, especially given the fact that President Trump made a comment about the fact that he doesn't care about the value of the dollar, which is one of the reasons that it dropped a bit. But also just the fact that there aren't any other currencies. There isn't anything in terms of crypto where it's being viewed as a safe hedge right now. I mean, clearly a number of people still are considered important, which it should be, but it's not. None of these are the safe harbors. And so right now, gold and silver are, when they go up like the way they are, that means that a lot of people are trying to mitigate risk, and they are worried about the dollar, and they are worried about even other currencies.
One big story after another. Thank you very much for fielding all those questions here expertly as always. That is prominent Los Angeles area economist Kevin Klowden, fellow at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica. Looking forward to speaking with you again very, very soon. Thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank, and best to everyone.
Thank you very, very much.
Get ready for The Rush with Max Crosby.
It's time.
Your all-access pass into the heart of the NFL.
This is the National Football League, and they don't play around. You got to be smart.
All-pro defensive end Max Crosby takes you beyond the field with exclusive insights.
I could say this because I've played them.
This is The Rush.
You guys already know what time it is. It was fire, and we'll be right back on the pod, and we'll be talking about it next week.
The Rush with Max Crosby. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The expectation and the norm is to win, and that is what we will be able to do here. I believe in the power of UCLA.
It's a new day for UCLA football with new head coach Bob Chesney taking charge, and we need you to be a part of it. The right man is at the helm in Westwood, and the time is now for you to put your support behind the Bruins. UCLA football is ready to win, and we can't wait to see you this fall. Visit UCLABruins.com/tickets for more info on how to secure your seats for the 2026 season. Go Bruins!
Motaca Money continues here, 790 KABC. Oil prices moving higher today, and reports that President Trump is weighing new strikes on Iran. Also, the European Union moved today to designate Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization, and Germany immediately pledged to make the decision legally binding as soon as possible. All this coming alongside a new round of EU sanctions targeting Iranian authorities and entities amid the violent crackdown on protests and mass killings that have swept Iran since the end of December. The price of oil in New York right now at around 68 and change, and it's getting closer to $70 a barrel now in London. Following all this very, very closely, joining us live now is prominent oil industry analyst John Kilduff, CNBC contributor and longtime contributor to this program. John, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Always good to be with you, Frank. Good evening.
Good evening to you, and take it from the top. Give us your assessment of things here at the moment.
Yeah, well, on the aftermath of the Venezuelan situation, now we have part two here with Iran, and this situation has really ramped up rapidly. We had gone from really a very low-profile militarily or naval asset reach in the Middle East to a very substantial one, really in no time flat. Just like I think when you and I were speaking before the Venezuela operation, we're on the cusp of an Iranian operation. I think they are, though, struggling to a degree with how to handle this. You and I spoke, last time about, what would you do here? Because decapitation won't necessarily get the job done. Boots on the ground are a tough pill to swallow. And I would point out that the regime does have some support within the country. It's not zero. So, there are going to be obviously forces that are going to try to maintain the status quo, not the least of which are the well-armed and hideously well-armed IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, who have obviously already turned massively on their own population. So this is heating up. The concern here then, Frank, that's being evidenced in the oil market is what happens to the navigation in and around the Strait of Hormuz, oil flows, and of course, regional assets. Does Iran lash out against, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and of course, Israel, if Israel were to participate? But I can tell you, even if Israel doesn't participate, they will be on Iran's short list, assuming Iran can do anything. They talk a big game. We saw last fall when the U.S. and Israel went in there basically untouched and did what they did at will, really. So I'm skeptical of several things. A, Iran's ability to fight off any kind of incursion, and B, do anything in terms of halting or harming the navigability of the Strait of Hormuz. It's telling, though, however, that the Europeans have weighed in here. I think the massacre of the civilians that has happened, which is leaking out now finally, and the great extent of it, the sad great extent of it, is something that is a motivating and unifying factor. This looks like it's going to be it for this Islamic regime in Iran for now. What we get, though, Frank, afterward is a jump ball, and that's going to be the hard part here.
Right, with the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard being declared a terrorist organization by the European Union, so probably would make sense for military forces to go after wherever they are at this point, right? The ones that have been perpetrating these horrific atrocities, killing their own people there on the streets of Tehran and other Iranian cities. In the meantime, the U.S. military buildup reportedly continues. It's been widely reported that the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is in the area, and then there are reports that the USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group also moving in that direction, and looks like it's also been reported the largest, certainly, military buildup in the Middle East since June of 2025, following an advance, actually, of the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. So it was surprising that the price of oil was holding at around $60 a barrel for so long. Now it's close to $70. Where do you see the price of oil in all this go from here?
Well, higher, Frank, I think in the near term. Brent crude oil, the price you referenced out of the London exchange, did top $70 a barrel at one point today. Look, with the calculus here, Frank, is that how desperate does Iran get? The Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, really is the government. The Ayatollah is sort of a figurehead. They report into him, but they pretty much do what they want to do and give him sort of just basic highlights and get authorizations off that. They are the organ of the Iranian regime that oppresses, that steals, they are the bad actors. And there's a list of them that will certainly be hit, assets of theirs that'll be hit, and certainly the relatively small Iranian military assets will certainly get struck. The question is, do they try and lash out? They're like a drowning man pulling everyone they can down with them to try to save themselves? That's what the oil market's pricing in. Will they mine the Strait of Hormuz like they have done in the past? And just to put this in perspective, Frank, over the years here, we have had as many as 3 carrier strike groups in and around the Strait of Hormuz area, the Gulf of Aden, We went down to 0 while we were going into Venezuela. We're back to 2, pushing on 3 again. So this thing, like I said, is going to happen relatively soon.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motec on Money, live on the air with John Kilduff, prominent oil analyst and CNBC contributor, longtime contributor to this program. And as far as the impact oil prices will have, mercifully, gas prices have come down significantly, but not so much here in the Los Angeles area. What kind of gas prices are on your radar screen in all this?
They're ticking up already, Frank. National average, I believe I checked this one, 286. I believe that national average will go over $3 here as this thing heats up. I would like to point out, because you and I do talk about the stocks, because that's your show, about all these things. But even without the Iran situation and all the talk of the Magnificent Seven over the past year or so, check out ExxonMobil hitting an all-time high this week. Exxon and Chevron announce their earnings tomorrow. I expect them to surprise to the upside and look for guidance to be spectacular on these higher oil prices and, unfortunately for consumers, much higher natural gas prices. And not to mention these slightly higher gasoline prices will also help in the quarters ahead. So, again, to the extent you're looking to hedge your portfolio, I think I've been on your show consistently saying have a piece of your portfolio in companies, the big ones, the great ones, like Exxon and Chevron, Conoco, some of the other straight-up producers. If you did, you did well.
Absolutely. And natural gas also has been, got that big spike because of that big snowstorm recently, right?
100%, Frank. This has been the worst-case scenario because of how extensive that system was and is. It's putting a strain not just on heating, but also then supplies for natural gas, because in the Southeast in particular, there's a lot of electricity-generated baseboard heating, not natural gas, like you guys have out in California, too. So there's a big call on demand. We had a huge withdrawal of gas from storage reported last week. Next week's report, we get a weekly report on the inventories on natural gas. It's going to be spectacular. Those prices are holding up as well.
John, thank you very much for taking the call. John Kilduff at Again Capital, CNBC contributor and great contributor to this program for a long time. John, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here.
Always my pleasure, Frank. Thank you, and everyone be safe.
Thank you very, very much, John. Stay tuned now to the 790 KBC News Blitz, and then it's the Way Home radio show and podcast presented by the Union Rescue Mission at 6 here in 790 KBC.
The CJ Pearson Show.
I'm CJ Pearson, and I'm the host of The CJ Pearson Show. Every single week, we'll take on the biggest cultural, political, and moral battles in America head on. No spin, no filters, and, well, no apologies. We'll break down the biggest stories shaping our culture from a Gen Z perspective that refuses to be managed, muted, or manipulated. Bold truth, real conviction, zero permission. This isn't punditry. It's a generational takeover. This is The CJ Pearson Show.
The CJ Pearson Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.